This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and personal lives, and how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today we're dealing with our first big topic. We've made it through what is value. We've made it through the research behind how to calculate value. We even made it through last episode, all the different terms that appraisals will use, or accountants will use, or CPAs will use, or attorneys, etc., will use to help us understand value. Now we're going to start dropping down into, now how are we going to increase the value? So today, I'm titling the episode an overview. This is just an overview of the 8 key areas of business and the personalities of each section. So I want to accomplish 2 things today. I want to go over the 8 core areas. I've mentioned this in the last 10, 15 podcasts. I've mentioned this a couple of times about there's 8 core areas to business. So I want to deal with that. And I also want to deal with the personalities of each individual section of this area. So I want you to think of a wagon wheel. That's the way I'm going to describe this to you. A wagon wheel. Or maybe you think of a piece of pizza. That's probably better, right? I mean, as you could probably think, it's late in the day here, and I'm thinking pizzas for supper. Maybe some sausage and pepperoni, a little bit of green olives, a little bit of mushrooms. You know, one of my dreams, and I know I'm all off topic here, but one of my dreams is to actually be sponsored by like Papa John's or Pizza Hut or Pizza Inn or something. Oh, I'm just telling you, I like them all. I like pizza. I mean, pizza's going to be in heaven. Jesus, I think, created pizza. Anyways, I want you to think of a piece of pizza, and you'd cut the piece of pizza right down the middle from top to bottom. And so now you have 2 halves, and you're going to slice it left to right. And we're going to deal with that. So we're going to cut the piece into 8 sections. And we're going to call the top 12 o'clock, like on a clock. 12 o'clock is the top, 6 o'clock is the bottom, 3 o'clock is the right-hand side, 9 o'clock is the left-hand side of the clock you're looking at. So at the top, at the 12 o'clock position, moving clockwise around the piece of pie, you're going to come to your pepperoni first, and you're probably going to want to bite the pepperoni. It's okay. Let's let the pepperoni, he didn't hurt you. Anyways, the first piece that we're going to come to is the area, and this is one of the key fundamentals of businesses. Well, the very first section we're going to deal with, and that is the term planning. Planning. We're going to talk about in the podcast in the future, what is planning? What types of planning should we do as business owners? What types of planning should our team members be a part of? What types of planning should we avoid as business owners? So that is number 1, planning. And by the way, planning is one of the weakest, I'm going to say it again, it's one of the weakest areas when it comes to the fundamentals of business. It is. We often get too busy. We don't work on our business enough. But that is nonetheless the very first slice of pizza we're going to come to is planning. The second slice of pizza we're going to come to, the second key area of the 8 fundamentals, is between the 2 and 3 o'clock position. That is leadership. Leadership. So we have first planning, and then we have leadership. Leadership is found throughout the entire organization. It's top-down leadership and bottom-up leadership. We're going to talk about how to build leadership from the top down and how to build leadership from the bottom up and why it's important. And specifically, how does it add to the value of your company? Now, as we continue around our slice of pizza, right? Our piece of pizza, our pizza pie. Let's get this right. We've just passed 3 o'clock and we're coming to our third section of business, and that is sales. Sales not being the actual selling process is part of it, but what is the sales process? What is the actual verbiage used in your particular organization? How are you leading up to the sales? Are you in front of qualified individuals? Are you not in front of qualified individuals? So we're going to deal with the section of sales in detail. We're now at that 5 to 6 o'clock position on the clock, and that brings in the key area of marketing. You know, marketing is probably, in my opinion, one of the most underutilized areas of most small businesses. We just do not market. I would say planning is probably at the top. Marketing is a close second. I can't pass planning on it because I see some people marketing, but we often don't have what a true marketing plan is. So what is a marketing plan? How do we market? What's our message? What's our concept? What are our colors? We're going to deal with all those in the marketing section. So on our clock, we've just passed 6 o'clock, and now we're coming to people. People. How do you deal with your team? Are they positioned properly? Do their personalities match their skill sets? How are you messaging to them? How are they communicating amongst themselves? How does your team view the values and the culture of your organization? Do you have your team prepared for long-term longevity? Are they ready to go through a transition? So that's people. The sixth area of your business, key area, rests between the 7 and the 9 o'clock position. That is operations. What is the structure of your operations? Are you using the right systems? Operations is historically and many times one of the strongest areas of a business because we, being the entrepreneur, view it as something tangible that we can see. We can see the product go through the pipeline. So operations often has a lot to deal with. Many times operations is where, like in the manufacturing world, where Six Sigma and Lean came from. And now, well, Six Sigma is almost dead now, but Lean manufacturing comes into play, and that's with operations. And there's some validity to it. Operations are very valuable, but it's not more valuable than sales, and it's not more valuable than leadership, and it's not more valuable than planning. See, every one of these pieces have a specific reason for the business. So we now pass the 9 o'clock position, and we're between the 9 and the 11 o'clock, or 9 and 10 and a half o'clock position. And that is where your finance department comes in. And finance, for most small business owners, we think it is the CPA or the enrolled agent, the tax position, who does our books for us. And friends, that could mean further from the truth. Finance goes through the heart. It shows you how to quantify specifically what you're trying to achieve in your business. That is finance. So finance is valuable, but that's not the most and not the worst. It's just a very good part. And many times people will hire out the financial position. The last of the 8 key areas, and this is not, certainly but not least, but it's organized this way for a strategic reason, which we'll see in just a second. The last one is legal. And legal rests between the 11 and the 12 o'clock position. Legal is making sure that your business is compliant with the areas that it operates. It's dealing with specifically labor laws. It's dealing with contracts. It's dealing with buy-sell agreements. It's dealing with contingency plans. It's dealing with tragic doomsday scenarios. Legal is what brings them apart. So these are the 8 core areas of business, the 8 main areas. So I'm going to repeat them one more time in order. So it's planning, leadership, sales, marketing, people, operations, finance, and legal. And what we did in that list was we started up at 12 o'clock and we went counterclockwise all the way around the clock. So now in your mind's eye, we have just divided this piece of pizza. We've divided up our circle into 8 key areas, 8 of our elements. Planning is at the top, all the way around to legal. And I want you to take and divide it into quarters. So draw a line in your imaginary mind from the number 12 at the top of your piece of pizza, or the top of your pie chart, and draw it all the way down to number 6, which is at the bottom. And then I want you to draw a line from the number 9 to number 3. So it looks like you have a crosshairs. And right in the middle of that crosshairs, there's going to be a nice big piece of sausage that we're going to aim at, right in the middle of our pizza. And I want you now to take the company, those 8 core areas, and I want you to break it down to 4 core areas. So in the top right quadrant, you're going to have planning and leadership are going to be together in your mind. In the bottom right quadrant, you're going to have sales and marketing. In the bottom left quadrant, you're going to have operations and people. And in the top left quadrant, you're going to have legal and finance, or finance and legal. So these are the 4 quadrants. Now here's where it gets interesting. In business, if we overlay a personality profile of each of these sections, we will notice something very interesting. So we've heard of the Myers-Briggs, and we've heard of 16 personalities, and we've heard of the DISC model, and we've heard, and there's many other types of personality profiles. For this particular lecture, I'm going to use the DISC, D-I-S-C. And here's what I want to point out to you. So D stands for dominant, and these are all some very decisive people. They're very driven. They're results-oriented people, right? This is where the dominant person is. The dominant person is going to be up in the planning and the leadership section. So the D is going to correlate in the top right side of your pie chart or your pizza. The D personality is often your CEO. Many times entrepreneurs of service companies are strong, dominant Ds. It's just the way that we were made by our creator. So the dominant person is operating in a very interesting capacity, and that is that of a D. The next one we have is what's called the influencer. And these are the interactive people, the optimistic people, the fun, the social. They're the life of the party. When they walk in, everybody knows they're there. These individuals are your sales and marketing teams. They're bright. They're full of color. They're fun to be around. They're not the jackasses like the dominant people are. And by the way, I'm a dominant person, so I can say that. Well, they're not mean. They're not often, we're not mean. I would say we're often viewed as just being all business and no fun. And that's the D personality. But these guys are having a blast. They're having fun. They're in sales and marketing. Then you go into the supporter, and these are the patient people. These are the people who are systematic in their approach. That's the supporter. And these are your people. These are the people who often will support your support type class. And these are your operations individuals. These are the ones who are working in the assembly line, or these are the ones who are assistants to the president. Many different types of people. That's where the supporters run in personality. Next, you come around to the compliant. These are the analytical, the very extreme accurate. They're going to fuss over where the decimal is, which I would too, but they're logical in their approach. They're not emotional. They're just purely numbers driven. And this is obviously the finance and the legal side.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So here's where it gets extremely interesting. And I am not a personality expert. I know a lot of personality experts. In fact, we have somebody we're going to be interviewing on the podcast to talk about this particular thing. I'm not that individual, but here's what I do know. I do know I'm a dominant individual. That's where my major personality is. And I will clash almost every time with an S. So if I'm in planning and leadership, the people that I want to be around are people who are in planning and leadership. I can tolerate a little bit of the I's and I can tolerate a little bit of the C's because they're touching me. I'm not very good with S's. That's just my personality profile. On the other hand, if I were a strong C, we have a member of our team who's a very strong C, very analytical, very good at their job. They don't mesh very well with the influencers. They just don't. So the finance and the sales sides, if you look on your chart, they are usually at war with each other. The finance and sales teams, they just don't see eye to eye. Think about it. Finance is all about very accurate numbers. They're playing with tangibles. They're analytical. They're trying to calculate. Even my last podcast, I dealt with the tangibles of money, having to calculate cost of goods, having to calculate cash flow, free cash flow to the firm, free cash flow to equity. Those are a compliant technique. How in the world are we going to quantify marketing? It's often difficult. Now, many times today in the social media, it can be easier to quantify, but you can see that if we're dealing with something that's an intangible or something that's hard to quantify, like sales and marketing, it's often opposite that of the finance or legal side of things. So whenever you're building your team, if you realize you have 8 key areas and now you're trying to bench up to these 8 key areas, it behooves us to know the personalities that we're hiring. I don't want to put an I position. If someone who is a strong I, who's optimistic, fun, and social, interactive, doing a very analytical job, that's opposite their skill set. What I'm going to have is lots of errors in an analytical job, and they're going to get bored and they're not going to stay with me. I also don't want to give somebody who is patient or conscientious or systematic, I don't want to put an S in the position of trying to drive results. That's not the methodology we want to use in our business. So many times I'll go into business and I lay out the 8 key components and we do personality profiles and I'm helping the business owners and we look and their team is all out of whack. I was in one and it was an engineering firm and all the engineers were C's and D's, just the way their personality worked out. Guess what they wanted to hire? Another C or another D. And I'm like, team, stop. We need to get a couple of S's and a couple of I's in here because this company, your sales and marketing is way down. Well, we don't need sales and marketing, says the C. Of course you do. But the C personality said, no, we don't need that. And when I said, guys, we need some systems in place, and the D personality says, no, we don't. Yes, we do. We're trying to grow value in a company. We have to have all these components, and we need to have rock stars in place. So at the top, our D dominant people and our C compliant people, they're task-oriented people. That's just the way they operate. If we look at the left half of the pizza, the D's and I's, these are big pictures. They make fast decisions. They're not a lot of detail, and they speak a lot. I'm a D. I don't have as much detail as some of my other peers in the industry. And I know an individual who I follow. I've met him a couple of times named Michael Kitsis. I love to read the guy's work. He is very, very, very analytical. Man, if he listens to this podcast, he's going to say, Justin, I'm not very analytical. To me, he is, because he is giving rock star information out for financial people. And I love it. It's super great. I'm like, dude, I am not that detail oriented. I like to talk. I like to make fast decisions, and I like to look at the big picture. If I look down the bottom half of the pizza, draw that line from 9 o'clock over to 3 o'clock, the S, the supporter, and the I, the people who are in operations, people, marketing, and sales, those are people-oriented individuals. They need to be around people. Guys, remember, I'm a strong D. Strong D. The way I recharge is sitting on a fishing boat somewhere with no one around me, sitting in a tree stand watching Bambi walk by and enjoying every second of it, sitting out on my tractor for hours upon end, not talking to anybody. That's the way my brain recharges. My business partner, one of my organization, he is a strong I. The way he recharges is he goes and gets a bunch of people and puts on his boat, people he don't even know. I'm like, dude, you've lost your mind. That's not me. Now, if we look at the left side, so draw the line from 12 o'clock down to 6 o'clock and look at the left side, and that's going to include your people, your operations, your finance, and your legal. These are your C, your compliant individuals, and your S, your supporter individuals. These individuals need time to process. See, I want to walk in, I want to say, hey, make a decision now. And they're like, time out. I got to think about this. Give me a few days to process. I often see entrepreneurs get frustrated with lawyers and accountants. I see it often. Trust me, I've been there, because we want answers fast. Lawyers and accountants are C people. They need time to think. They need time to process. That's the way God made them. They want to analyze every detail. They're asking lots of questions, and they're pretty introverted. They're more reserved in nature. Just the way that they are. And in our business, if we understand the 8 key components, if we understand we have planning and leadership, then that individual who's over that, or those individuals who are over that particular area, they have to be decisive. They have to be results driven, and they have to be in such a way they can get the rest of the team to buy in. If we're dealing with the influencer who's over sales and marketing, then they have to be interactive. They have to be optimistic. They've got to be people oriented. They've got to be able to communicate in a fun, exciting manner. It's just the way it works. If we're dealing with people in operations, we're dealing with that supporter individual. They've got to be patient. They're going to have systems. They're going to be very conscientious in the way they move about. It's going to drive the D personality like me absolutely crazy. It will. That's okay. If we're dealing with finance and legal, these guys and gals are extremely analytical. They're accurate to the penny. They're logical. They have to have time to process. They have a lot of detail. They're going to ask lots of questions. And that's okay. That's okay. So I wanted to take this episode and lay out the 8 key fundamentals. And I want to lay out the personality profiles of each of these 8 fundamentals. And if you need more information about this, take a look at the podcast on the blog. We're going to have some information there that I'm not including here that I hope you get some insight. I've also got some graphics we can add there that I hope you visualize what I'm trying to discuss. So that's it, folks. That is the 8 key areas. We are diving in a deep dive now down to the abyss of each of these areas. And we're going to analyze how planning adds value. Leadership, sales, marketing, people, operations, finance, and legal, how each of these areas add value and how we can grow our company through these 8 strategic areas. So guys, thanks for joining me on the podcast. As always, check out financiallysimple.com under the heading podcast. Hey, connect with me on social media. I had a few people connect with me this last week, and I'm getting some cool feedback. We're started on Financially Simple on our Facebook and our YouTube channel. We're starting 3 live videos a week. What I hope to have happen very soon is to have a Q&A, a live Q&A on those channels where we're sharing video and I can answer your questions live time. So we're working on that. Tag me if you're listening out there. And if you don't mind, share the podcast. Give me a good review if you like it. Hey, if you don't like it, share it anyways. Like I say every week, life is hard, life is good, and life can be frustrating. Money does not have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and create a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.